everybody. Thank you for coming back to this amazing final session of Restart. This panel is called Taking Charge, Women in Entertainment. My name is Wendy Mitchell. I'm thrilled to be your moderator today. We've heard lots of women's voices amplified throughout, I think, every session. So it's not just that women get to talk once. Women have been talking for 3 days. There's been some brilliant, inspiring, and educational and interesting panels over the past 3 days, and I have no doubt this final session will end on things on a high note. Thanks to the audience for joining us. Just to remind you, you can ask questions of these brilliant speakers, so you can do that in the Q&A section. I'd like to introduce 3 amazing, powerful women in film and TV. We have Kara Shepard, who is Managing Director of Twickenham Studios, which has been around for more than 100 years, not Kara herself, obviously. Twickenham offers production and post-production services for features, TV shows, documentaries, music videos, commercials. Kara's had a fascinating career before joining Twickenham just last year. Interesting times to be, changing jobs. We'll talk to her about that. But before Twickenham, she worked at Warner Brothers, Delane Lee, Sky, Goldcrest, and elsewhere. So thrilled to have Kara here. We also have Rosa Diaz, who is Managing Director of Afro Mike Productions. She has over 20 years TV experience, starting out as a reality TV contestant. Can you believe it? Before moving behind the camera as a producer. She founded the Belfast-based production company Afro Mike in 2014. The company specializes in factual entertainment and factual programming. And their credits include Adrian Dunbar's Coastal Ireland. Oh my gosh, yes, she knows Ted Hastings, everybody. Other credits include The Search, Our Weddings, and Letters in Lockdown. Last but not least is a great friend of screen, who is Uzma Hassan, who is producer at Little House Productions. Uzma worked at Slingshot Productions and then became one of the founders of Little House, and they tried to bring subversive stories to a global audience. I love that. She is a non-executive board member at Channel 4 and a trustee at Bird's Eye View. She has produced films including The Infidel and Firstborn, and if you haven't seen Firstborn, I think you can find it on Netflix. So 3 amazing women doing very creative work. I wanted to start with you, Kara, partly because we don't always see a lot of women, or I haven't, in working in physical production and post-production and running studios. So can you tell us a little bit about how your career started and how it's led you to becoming MD of Twickenham?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you could just say I couldn't make up my mind. But I started in production. I'd always kind of loved movies, the movie industry, and it always just felt like a bit of a calling that I was just meant to work in the industry. And so I started working in production, and I was a PA. And then I went on to work for some great people and worked in production, and I was an assistant director for a while. And then I made a move into post-production, and I was a post-production supervisor for a little while. And then I changed to the other side of the fence, from being the client to being the facility. So I'm very interested in technology and workflow, and that kind of side of it, which is quite unusual for women. I think there's plenty of women out there who are, but either don't have the confidence to speak about it, or it's not talked about enough. And I like to be sort of quite involved in sort of network architecture of the studio and how content moves around and all those kind of things. And I have been at all the facilities that I've been at. Now I sort of tend to go into a place when it's a little bit older. And obviously this is the oldest studio in the UK, built in 1913. And some of it's been developed, but there's plenty more to develop. And now I found myself, I've been very lucky enough to be approached by companies to go and work for them every time, which has been incredibly nice and very flattering. And yeah, I consider myself incredibly lucky to be in the position I'm in, and to kind of, I guess, do an unusual, or a more unusual, being the head of a studio as a woman, and kind of, standing up for the women, I think, in the industry.
That's wonderful. We're glad to have you at Twickenham. Uzma and Rosa, you've both founded your own production companies, and I'm curious, just the experience of that and what lessons you've learned in doing that. Uzma, can we start with you by asking you about setting up Little House and that journey?
Sure. Firstly, thank you everyone who's tuning into this. I wish I could see all of your faces. Everyone in the afternoon, shout out to everyone. Um, I wanted to start Little House essentially because I wanted to have a little bit more of a say over the kind of projects that I was working on. So we launched in like 2013. And at the time, I had just come back from working in the Middle East and in Asia for film funds, and had this really incredible sort of international experience, but wanted to start telling the types of stories that I found compelling and exciting. So that really was the starting point, wanting to have your own wanting to have your own platform, really. And the way I went about it was very much, I wanted to approach it with backers first. So I went out and looked for financing to have that, so I could start building up my own slate. And of course, these things take at least twice as long as you think they're going to take.
Yeah, but I guess you really have to be entrepreneurial to be a producer in most cases, but especially an independent producer with your own company. So I guess we could say you're really not scared of that finance side of the world.
No, I love it, and I think it's putting together the finance for not only companies but films. It's like you're creating a little startup every time, and you're trying to convince people of your vision and the team, and what impact it's going to have in the market. So I find that super exciting. Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of the job.
Yeah. And Rosa, I would love to hear your experience. Is it similar to Uzma's? How did you get Afro Mike off the ground?
It is. So about 6 years ago, I was made redundant from an ad agency. I was their in-house TV producer, and before that, assistant creative director. I was making ads for about 8 years, and the commercial world, the budgets were getting smaller. It was going digital. There were redundancies, and I took mine, but I only had enough money to keep a roof over my head for about 3 months. I sort of was desperation. I had a laptop, and I was like, I could do this on my own, because I really want to feed my creative soul by doing longer form content, because it would be a luxury if I got a minute to make a commercial. So I would have gone to another ad agency, but one of my friends, Kieran Doherty from Stellify, said just try it out on your own. So I did, and I started doing music documentaries that I was passionate about for Vimeo on demand. So I got a real insight to distribution, and I put them on, and they sold about in 89 countries around the world. Very niche, wasn't a lot of money, but I proved to myself I could do it. And then I did do a couple of car commercials just to get a startup office, put the lights on and keep the lights on. And I hired one person that was supposed to be for 6 weeks, and he's still working for me now part-time. So yeah, that's how I started.
Amazing. I mean, I just salute anybody that can start anything of their own. It's such a leap to do that. I think anytime I see a panel that's gathered women together, I think it's so important not just to talk to you about being women. Let's talk about your work. So, Kara, can I come back to you and ask what's going on at Twickenham right now? It sounds like quite an exciting time, especially this whole conference is called Restart. Production is ramping up again, we hope. What's going on in terms of innovation at Twickenham? I mean, is the studio quite busy right now?
We are packed to the rafters, actually. We've been open for, we reopened pretty much at the end of Q2 last year. So we've been open for quite some time again, which has been fantastic. So life has kind of, COVID compliant has kind of continued really in our work environment. But Twickenham was sold last year to a company called Time and Space Studios, and they're an operating platform that have several studios in the pipeline and more purchases going on. So there's many studios and facilities coming online. Twickenham being the first one, and with that has come sort of a multi-million-pound regeneration of the site, while kind of keeping the heritage and the history of this amazing place, which you can literally feel in the walls. It does need some significant updates, and we've just rebuilt our two largest dub stages. They're about to be relaunched. But at the same time, while doing that, it is allowing us to almost start again from a network architecture and infrastructure and a workflow point of view, which means we can now start looking at things from a more innovative, forward-thinking R&D point of view. And we've just brought on an incredible director of technology, Tomasz Wikowski, and an amazing director of facilities and operations. And it's great to have a really strong leadership team and who are really kind of, roll your sleeves up, get involved from the top level to, I had literally my director of operations was unplugging a drain yesterday. It was unbelievable. And it's just, well kind of below his pay grade. But at the same time is, doing multi-million-pound budgets and working with our development director to look at the development across the site, because obviously we have to operate a studio while we redevelop the whole studio, which is quite an undertaking.
Yeah, you can't just shut down and for a few years and do a lick of paint, can you? Can you tell us any projects that have shot recently? I know some probably are protected by NDAs, but any sort of recent highlights of things that have been shooting there?
I can't give you any specific because we've got a slight issue in the fact that obviously there's been a lot of projects that have been finished but are on the shelf. So, and obviously still until release, we're still under NDA, but some super exciting projects. And we've actually, in the addition of our dub stages and the upgrades, we've spent over £1 million on each of our two dub stages, which are both now Dolby Atmos and IMAX sound. And we're pretty much, other than Abbey Road, the only people that are able to mix IMAX in the UK, which is super exciting. And that has meant we've got a huge feature who are coming to work on their trailer next week. And yeah, I obviously can't tell you who it is, but we've had some like super exciting projects. And while we want to maintain the kind of Twickenham heritage of doing some really cool independent Brit films, it's always good to have a nice mix of a couple of big tentpole studio features. And obviously we're seeing a big surge in high-end TV and that episodic type of work from the streamers. We're seeing a huge surge in demand from that market.
Great, things are busy. Uzma, what are you busy with at Little House? I think one project I've been tracking of yours is London Stani. Can you give us an update on that, or what else might be?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm in the final stages of funding for London Stani, so we are being backed by the BFI and by a whole bunch of incredible private equity investors as well. So we're hoping to shoot that later on in the summer. And I'm also in post on a project that's been very close to my heart for many years. That just came, one of these projects that just came out of nowhere, it seems, but that I've been thinking about for a long time, that I'm working with Asif Kapadia on. So we're currently posting that and hoping to be ready for some screenings in the summer.
Amazing. And for people who don't know, can you tell us a little bit more about London Stani? It's a literary adaptation, I believe, and who's directing, and
Yeah,
can you tell us?
yeah. So London Stani is based on a cult novel by Gautam Malkani, and it's set in sort of London in Hounslow in the 90s amongst the British Asian community, British Asian rude boys. And I mean, there's a word that gets used a lot, authenticity, but it really is an authentic portrayal of British Asians at that time. And it was a really 90s was a really interesting time for sort of marginalized communities in that it was the first generation sort of growing up with foreign parents but feeling British and finding their way through their identity. And it's very much a coming of age tale about a boy who's finding out where he sits in the world. So I'm really excited to make that, and it's been a long gestating project, but some of the best ones are. It feels like exactly the right time to be making that film.
Oh, very exciting. Screen will come on down to a set visit this summer, so we'll stay in touch.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Would love that.
And Emma Rosa, what do you have on your slate at Afromike, and are things busy?
Yeah, yeah, very busy. We've had the first year, I can say that we've been full tilt in production and development at the same time, because when you're quite small, it's like stop, start, stop, start. But this year's been brilliant. We have a 6-part glossy interior design feature show for BBC Northern Ireland. We are next week. We've 3 different things TXing. One is our observational documentary series, The Search, which is a lockdown sort of looking back at 2020 and how these amazing people went out and help people with mental health and dementia. They look for high risk missing people. We've just delivered a load of TikTok videos to Channel 4. That was a first. You know, I don't shy away from doing a lot of digital, because I find that the juniors in my team and the trainees, they learn really quickly, because I learned really quickly through commercials. So if we still do digital, and honestly, the paperwork and the deliverables for these things are the same as linear TV, so they learn really quickly. So we turned around these half hours, that's 31-minute TikTok videos in 5 weeks, and it was a really good research and development project for me, because we got to use new talent, and I think I'm going to bring some of this new talent to our development for linear TV as well. So that was fantastic. And we have a few other things that I'm not allowed to announce yet. So
Well, sounds very. I love that you're
yeah.
evolving with TikTok and other formats we don't even know about yet. Can I ask you? I'll start with you, Emma Rosa. It sounds like you were able not to just sort of shut down during the pandemic. You were able to keep some stuff filming. Did it feel? I mean, obviously it was a strange year for everybody, but did it feel like you really had a pause, or you were able to keep working?
No, not at all. And I can remember the day clearly, the 16th of March last year, when I just thought, the whole we've 7 in the team, and everybody was just glued to the news. There was a lot of tension in the office, and I thought, guys, just take your laptops, your computers, go home, and we'll start. And I was panicking inside. I was at home because I started in my kitchen. This is my dining area. I started in my kitchen 6.5 years ago. So to come back here, I was like, oh no, is this the end? What's happening? And I think a lot of people in Factual were, like me, I was going, is there anything in archive? Is there anything we've filmed a lot of, for a taster that we could make stories of, just to keep the lights on type thing? And then I got a commission with BBC Northern Ireland called Weddings, and I just thought, everybody has a wedding video. Can we find people from the last 6, since the 60s, and their wedding videos, and tell stories through that? And we did, and we've got a series out of it, and we're still making them. We've done 60 years of Christmas, school days, holidays, and that's going out next week. So it was just really adapting. And then we made Adrian Dunbar's Coastal Ireland between the first lockdown and the second lockdown. Honestly, I got the whole team COVID trained, and we had to do all the tests, and the line of duty was Adrian was going into line of duty in September. So I worked really closely with World Productions to make sure that all the testing, and we did it with 5 men on the road. Usually it would have been, 7 of us all together. But I didn't get to go to any of the glorious 5-star hotels they went to instead. But we managed it, and I think it was just adapting and being sensible, and we still are. I think everything's going to be so much easier when this is over.
Yeah, I think a shoot post-pandemic will seem like easy peasy, maybe. Uzma, how did you sort of navigate this year? Did you use a lot of the time for development, or were you able to, you said you're in post on something, so was that something that was able to shoot a bit during pandemic?
I was actually really lucky because I was in development on a bunch of things, which continued at the same pace, really, apart from sort of, writers perhaps being a little bit more wary during the pandemic period. But actually, I really used it as an opportunity to really think about what I wanted to do next. And partially, this project that I'm in post on, it came about because a theatre production shut down and we decided to film it instead. So it was really exciting to be able to use the energy of the pandemic and sort of flip it on its head and actually shoot something. So I feel really blessed to have done that, and it's been an incredible experience to shoot under COVID restrictions and everything that brings. But it's been amazing how resilient production crew and post-production has been throughout this entire period. I'm just so impressed by our industry being able to keep calm and carry on. So yeah, a lot of learnings this year, but it was great to take stock on a bunch of projects and that also pushed something through that sort of came out of nowhere almost.
Amazing. Producers, resilient, love it. And Kara, I think you were bold enough to change jobs in 2020. How did you find the pandemic when it was first lockdown at Delane Lee, and then how did you then sort of transition when you joined Twickenham?
Yeah, I think it was I left Delane Lee. I think it was literally a week. It was kind of a week before everything shut down. Weirdly, at the same point, the studio was purchased, and then 2 weeks later, the whole thing had to shut down. The whole industry, the whole country shut down, which was quite interesting. I had the joy of being on gardening leave, so I was fine, which I consider myself being very lucky. So, but yeah, it was a lot of change. I think, and change that I had kind of inflicted on myself. And then during the pandemic, I think I had the luxury of being at home while kind of everything kind of fell down at where I had been, which I had nothing to do with anymore because I was on gardening leave, and then coming in to Twickenham aware of what was going on here. And the studio was almost forced to open by a client, really. They were desperately begging us to open because they needed to finish this big film, which is currently sitting on the shelf. But they were really, really pushing us to get that done. So we, at the studio put in some very, very early, a one-way system. We were biofogging areas. We put in, you had to fill out an app every day. We've got COVID testing for all of our, our clients and staff, and out of necessity, really, because this particular client, it's the type of client that you couldn't say no to. So of course we're going to reopen the studio. So we put ourselves under the gun, but the team here did an amazing job getting the studio open, and I consider myself very lucky that we've been pretty much, because of that, and we were forced to do it so early, pretty much fully open for the whole time. We did see a delay with a few productions being hesitant around starting again, between the lockdowns, that are unsure of what was going to happen for them. But other than that, we are pretty packed to the rafters here, and there has been. I consider us as an industry very lucky that we have continued, and it's not, for example, hospitality that has been so hard hit, and various other areas of the economy. We are very lucky, and I think we've as was said, we've the ability to keep calm and carry on has been quite extraordinary, and I think we'll all come out of this a lot stronger and a lot more resilient and a lot more resourceful.
Great. That leads me to that we've had an audience question come in for you, Cara, which is that on one of the restart panels yesterday, somebody suggested that all stages in the UK are booked for 5 years. Is that true in your case? This person is wondering, oh my gosh, how am I going to get my studio shoot done? How far in advance is Twickenham booked? I mean, is this a problem, capacity?
So I'll answer that in two ways. In answer to the question, yes, I think there is an absolute shortage of shooting space, which is why you're finding productions shooting in old warehouses, and that's got a whole host of other issues with it, around security and various other things. So yes, I would say it is an issue. We are a very high capacity. We have a lot of pencils. However, part of the group that I work for, Time and Space, we're very aware of that, and we're looking at solutions as to how we can alleviate that problem, and within our pipeline grow the group of studios that we're running, and we're looking at opportunities with private equity backing and some serious people who know how to run studios and work in the industry. We've got a good advantage, so we're looking at alleviating that problem.
Okay, so that person should not lose sleep at night that they can't
Definitely
find a
not.
space anywhere for 5 years.
Definitely not.
I wanted to ask, we are all women, and you're very successful in your fields. Can you think of personal ways we can help the next generation of women who want to work in media? And I'm also thinking intersectionally, women of color, gay women, disabled women, women from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. What are some ways the industry can help? Uzma, can I ask you that question?
Yeah, sure. It's a tricky question, because I think we've had women in the industry for such a long time, but it hasn't necessarily changed the way women can succeed in this industry. And I think it's really important for us to start now. It's not just about numbers, it's about, are you able to thrive in a holistic way in this industry? Is that possible? Is it possible to have a balanced family and or social life whilst working in this industry? And what are we doing as employers, and what are we doing as companies and corporations and institutions to make sure that that's the case? And for me, that's the next frontier, really. How to dismantle a system that frankly was not built for women or people of color to succeed in, and to start addressing those types of issues. Even the most simple sort of I know Raising Films does a lot of work around this, but the simple thing of, when you're shooting, you're pulling 14, 16-hour days. You just are. And that's really hard if you've got caring responsibilities at home, whatever those caring responsibilities may be. I actually had to, whilst I was shooting, move in with a friend. So I had childcare. So, it's really important that we try to allow more space for people's for women's needs. because I don't think society is going to suddenly change, and people's home lives will suddenly become incredibly equal. So we have to make sure that we're pushing to make that happen.
Yeah. Thank you. Some good ideas. And I'll just mention, you mentioned Raising Films, which is a great organization. I think right now they've got a survey open for parents and carers. And I would encourage people who are watching this to take their survey and let's talk about these things and get the data we need to make some change. Emma Rosa, how do you feel we can help that next generation of women, or maybe it's not a generation, just to help women succeed in these industries?
At the minute today, it would be helping Jonathan, who's a new start in our development team, because we are all women. And I told them I wasn't able to go on his sort of great Zoom because it started at the same time as this. So I'm like, girls, look after him. I've got all women on my team at the minute, and I don't know, that it just happened organically. I think there's a few things I've heard recently that disabled women have been able to get more work, freelance women, in the last year because of the protocols of working from home. But obviously we need to make the access to offices easier for them as well. There's loads of things, I've had mentors. Dorothy Byrne from Channel 4, Force of Nature, was my mentor, and I was really lucky. And I think when you have mentors like Dorothy, it's I mentor 2 young girls, one black girl who's just coming out of university, and then Erin, who's our production assistant. I think it's about giving back, and also when people screw up their faces to schemes, these schemes actually work, and I'm proof of that. I mean, the BM Accelerator scheme with Channel 5, I never had a relationship with anybody at Channel 5. And now, I've had my first series with them, and hopefully more. So, and that attitude, and then there's the BM Accelerator scheme with Channel 4 that's happening. So these opportunities are there, and looking out for them. But also, you have to remember, people from social economic backgrounds maybe don't have the access or follow these pages. So we need to reach out into these communities and tell them. And I'm doing that at the minute with NI Screen in Northern Ireland. We're going to reach out into communities that may not feel that they have this opportunity, and there are opportunities there.
Yeah, that's really great advice, I think. Cara, particularly with women working in either physical production, studios, post-production, how can we encourage more women to work in that side of the business?
Well, I think it's actually touching on what Emma Rosa just said. I think, we often think the obvious choice is to, when you put a job advert out, is look and potentially, favourably look on women applicants, and that's not the way we solve it. That's the wrong way. It's almost then a reverse bias, and you can end up then giving people opportunities that not necessarily that they don't deserve, but you're giving it to them just because they tick a box, which I don't believe in. But what we should be doing is going further back, and it is encouraging those people that, we're all in the industry, we understand it, and we have that. But from the outside looking in, it's a very closed environment. And for those people that don't have access to, they don't know anyone in the industry, they don't know they don't know what a runner is, they don't, they don't understand it. It is reaching out to those people and telling them about what we do. And it doesn't matter whether you have a degree, don't have a degree. It doesn't matter if you left school at 16. It doesn't matter. We are very lucky in this industry that you can be incredibly successful with not a single degree or qualification to your name. You genuinely can. And I think to be able to say that to people, and for all of us here today to sit and talk about this, and for I always actively, if I can, speak on panels, and I talk quite a lot on technology panels, and unfortunately, usually if they're technology panels, I'm usually the only woman, which I would like to see change. But I think it's again, it's a confidence. You are It's kind of fighting against the, it is the majority male, and you have to not be, it takes time to not be intimidated by that, and to have the confidence, and, race and gender, they don't matter, and qualifications don't matter. It's time, effort, determination, and access to be able to get and to be a part of the industry.
Great. Somebody in the audience is asking a good question. Are you aware of any schemes, any mentoring schemes for older women, maybe 50 plus, who are changing careers to move into film and TV, specifically production? I think I've heard of some, and I would encourage this person to check out what Screen Skills might list and all their opportunities. But does anybody know of things particularly to help mid-career or changing career at an older age?
So
I
think
don't
there's
actually, and I think,
the
sorry,
one,
go ahead.
Sorry, the one I know of is there is a scheme, I believe it's with Film London or connected to Film London, that is about encouraging parents, people that have taken a career break, to have children, either getting back to where they were in the industry or seeking another type of job, or learning new skills in the industry. So I do know about that. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what it's called, but I do know of that is basically a restart program for people that have taken a break from the industry. So you could almost apply the same rules, I guess, to that.
Okay, our restart guru, Charlotte Wheeler, is saying media parents might be a scheme this person can look at. I'm not sure if that's the same one. Uzma, did you know of any for mid-career?
I don't, but I think it's a really important thing actually, because there's so many entry level schemes, and actually I've found that getting into the film industry is the easy part. Progressing and staying in film and television is much harder, especially for women. So I would encourage anyone to reach out to mentors, and you'd be surprised, even a cold email, if you show your enthusiasm and willingness. I think people respond well to those conversations, initial conversations.
Great. Uzma, have you done any mentoring of the next generation, or have you had a mentor yourself?
Yeah, I always try and have both actually, several. So in terms of mentees, there's a few that I'm working with at the moment. One really brilliant young producer, Kate Adamson, who I brought onto my latest production, and who's also sort of producing a short film for me as well. And it's been it's been really brilliant to just be able to mentor her, but give her opportunities and see her shine, because she's brilliant at what she does. She just was not connected in the way that I have become after many years. Um, and in terms of mentors, I've been really blessed to have incredible mentors, not just, and I think it's worth saying, mentors aren't always for me people who are older and more experienced. I have a lot of peer-to-peer mentors, people who are coming up at the same time as me, um, both in film and television and in other industries, that I take a lot of comfort in speaking to, and sort of batting back and forth ideas, because it can be, especially independent production, can be really lonely. So I think it's really important to have people around you um, who who have more experience, different experience, and can also sort of sense check as well. Especially in the time of the pandemic, there's been such a we've all been isolated in our own ways. Um, so reaching out to people to try and get a sense of where your thinking is at, and just to bounce back and forth ideas, I think is really important.
That's great. I should also mention the European Women's Audiovisual Network, EWA. They have a mentoring scheme for producers that I think is really good. And also to mention, men can be allies and mentors. This is not excluding
Yeah.
one, I hope. There's another great question that's come in. Does the panel feel enough is being done in our industry to protect people against bullying and harassment? how is that something you're thinking about with your own staffs, your own crews? Emma, Rosa, can we ask you that first?
Yeah, that's come up a couple of times now in the past, not in within Afro Mike Productions, but just the topic. I don't do drama, and I know it happens in factual as well. But when it comes to drama, I think there's a lot to be done with regards training and approaching, but also in factual, with presenters or directors. There's online courses that they you could get them to sign up, and you could put that as part of their contract that they need to do that, and it would be. I haven't experienced it, thankfully, but and I would hope that my team would come to me if there was any issues. So I wouldn't tolerate it. I'm very, very protective of my team and freelancers that I work with.
Right. And I'll just mention the BFI and BAFTA have anti-bullying and harassment guidelines that people can, and resources people can look up. And again, Screen Skills might have some training related to that. I'm sure they do. Kara, what about that sort of bullying, harassment issues within a studio environment? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, from my personal perspective, we have an absolute zero tolerance policy on anything like that, and I'm a firm believer in being very protective of all my staff and having a real fair approach to everything, firm and fair. But across the board, coming from not necessarily just production or post-production, but coming also working for several big corporations. I genuinely don't believe enough is being done. I think there's a lot of noise being made about and flags being waved and sponsorship from these big names of support of women and people of colour and a lot of things, but a lot of it is talk. Unfortunately, in my experience, and unfortunately, I have been on the receiving end, and it's hard to navigate, and I don't think it will change anytime soon. I think it will take a long time, and it will be a cultural shift, I think. But I think, there's a lot of expectation that it will change overnight, but I genuinely don't think it will. And I think the expectation of that is that it will, and I just don't know that that's realistic.
Sad. Thank you for being honest about that. Yeah, Uzma, do you have any thoughts on the bullying and harassment issues?
I think that's right. I think there definitely is not enough being done, because I think part of the reason is that hotlines and email addresses that you can contact is all very well and good, but film and television, sometimes the power differential is so vast that there's simply not the space for someone who is being harassed in this way to be able to get recompense in any way, or sort of be honest about how they're feeling if they feel that they want to continue in this industry. And also, and more importantly, we are nowhere near the point where very well-known bullies, directors, writers and directors in particular, talent, also actors, are not getting their films financed. That's really where if you're tolerating it at that level, then it's a trickle-down effect. So I just think I think that a lot of not only institutions but funders and distributors have a lot to answer for, where somebody's behavior is very well known. It's more than just anecdotes, and yet they're still getting their next movie made. So yeah, I think once we become a bolder in terms of being zero tolerance as an industry, that's kind of when things will start changing at sort of mid to lower levels.
That's really good thinking. I I'm going to force a happy ending, like a romantic comedy. No, I just wanted to end on a positive note and ask each of you, what is exciting you about working in the film and TV industry in the near future? I mean, for me, it's seeing new voices and new stories I haven't seen before, and it feels like we're maybe seeing some more of those. I mean, 10 years ago, we would not have seen I May Destroy You on BBC One. And I love it. So Emma Rosa, what's exciting you?
I get excited all the time. I'm so excitable. Every day's different. So I'm all like, yeah. Even it can be stressful, and you gotta tell people, no matter what the opportunity and wanting to come into TV, you gotta work your ass off, But it's very rewardable and it's great. And I think the access to international commissioners, because we've been forced to use Zoom and connect that way, that's very exciting for me. And also with the more and more schemes coming through, I think we're going to hear TV will change if we get more diverse voices in, so that excites me a lot.
Great. Kara, what excites you about the future of this business?
I think the thing that has always excited me about this business is the opportunity to work with the world's most creative people, the proper masters of storytelling, from the small screen to the big screen, and just getting the opportunity to meet these people and work with them is extraordinary. And I think the volume, not only the volume of content increasing, but obviously we have all these platforms and they need content. So, I don't think I've ever seen quite such a surge in greenlighting productions. And obviously, there's a deficit of things for people to watch because during lockdown, everyone's watched everything. And, you see all these studios bringing on their own online platforms. There's a thirst for content of so much variation. And I think that's like super exciting, and it's just to see where that goes and how much, and just hoping we can maintain good production value and high quality. But I think it's really exciting, and I think the industry is moving at such a rate, and I think that's what's exciting.
Right. And Uzma, what's exciting you?
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I think the inevitability of change is the thing that's exciting me so much right now, because you can make a television program or a feature film and it can be watched by a housewife in Ohio or a teenage boy in South Korea. And I love that. And because of that, there are no excuses anymore. So there is I can feel the groundswell of a diversity of thought in the sort of screen industries in a way that there hasn't been for such a long time. And I'm so up for that. I love the content that's coming out because of that, and I'm enjoying watching places like the BBC change. So whether it's against their will or not, I think that's only a good thing. And as the demographics of has become more of a global society, I think that's going to lead to good things. Stories that help us understand each other on a global scale is something that really excites me.
Wonderful thoughts. Thank you to all three of you for being change makers yourself, for making great creative work, and for coming to Restart today to tell us a little bit more about it. Thank you hugely to the audience who's tuned in. I hope you enjoyed this final session. I'm now going to hand back to Chris Curtis from Broadcast to wrap things up. But thanks sincerely for joining us at Restart, and best of luck with those exciting future projects, everyone.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Wendy.